The Dark Room, exploring the strange and controversial, with your hosts, Paul Salvatori and Jordan Randall. Today we're talking with the Slut Whisperer, also known as Kirill Was Here.
Hey, it's Kirill.
Hi, Kirill. How you doing? It's Paul and Jordan.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, what's up?
Good, man. I just want to start things off for people who might not know, what as Slut Whisperer do you do?
How in depth do you really want me to go?
Really as much as you'd like to go in depth.
I mean, I don't want to bore anyone. Like, here's the thing. The problem with the problem and the advantage, I guess, of the internet is people don't really do too much research. They don't really, and they buy into everything, and they take everything at face value. So my whole career started way before Slut Whisperer. I've been out in nightlife for the past almost 7 years, photographing events, from corporate events to nightclubs to going on tour with DJs and artists and shooting concerts. And over the years, when I've been shooting nightlife, I kind of developed a style of just raw photography, just photographing everything that I see and not just making it glossy and like, oh, look, here's two guys holding a bottle of Grey Goose that they bought, because that's not somebody's night. Somebody's night to me was always, you're fucked up, you're drunk, you're a mess, you're out, you're partying.
Right.
And so obviously it got a little bit raunchier, and girls, after they, my reputation slowly started building as this like crazy party photographer, girls were more free to get a little more, naked around me. Right. And so I kind of built up this reputation of just being like the wild party photographer guy in nightlife. And at this time I had Instagram, and I had like, Kirill Was Here was my Instagram name. That got deleted. I went through like about 10 Instagram accounts, and then I just finally gave up, and I said, hey guys, I'm tired of coming up with new names. Give me a name. And some guy's like, Slut Whisperer. And I was like, oh, that's kind of hilarious because, obviously like the Dog Whisperer, like, oh, he like talks to sluts. He parties with sluts, and he parties with just drunk people. So I kind of took that name. And of course, that's the one name that's stuck on Instagram. And I've had issues with Slut Whisperer, but I've gotten it back. Mm-hmm. On Instagram, but this is the one Instagram account that is just like rolling and still going, and hasn't really, I haven't let it get deleted. And it kind of was weird, and I guess in a good way that it worked out this way, because the name is edgy enough, and it annoys people in the right way that I wanted to annoy them. So that's kind of how like everything came about. Right. And everybody on the internet's like, oh, Slut Whisperer, you're just like an internet Instagram celebrity. And it's like, nah, man, this is just like another branch of what I do. It's just another voice for me to annoy 900,000 people on the internet every day.
Interesting. Yeah, no, because I did read that you started off first as just a party photographer, right?
Yeah. I mean, before that, I dropped out of art college. I wanted to be a Disney animator my whole life. Like, I wanted to work for Disney and draw cute cartoons, and I went to art school, and then I hated it. And I've always had a love and appreciation for stand-up comedy. Right. I always thought it was like a very true art form where they're kind of like modern-day philosophers to me, stand-up comedians.
Yeah.
So I was very drawn to them, and I started hanging out in comedy clubs, and I knew graphic design, and I knew video editing, and I kind of became the kid who a lot of comedians relied on. Oh, Kirill, like I need help with my MySpace page, or I need help with my new website, or can you film this set I'm doing tonight in New York? And I kind of fell into the comedy scene, and I dropped out of college and started working at comedy clubs for about, I want to say 7 years or so. Wow. So I developed a very comedian's perspective on life, just kind of being tempered in this environment for 7 years, just being around comics who are obviously darker and look at life a lot differently and can find the humor in anything. So that kind of set me up as where my personality is, that nothing's off limits to me. Everything can be funny. And then I kind of package that with, oh, I'm out partying and I'm taking wild photos and I'm very in your face. And that's basically kind of the character that is, quote unquote, Slut Whisperer.
Right. And you, of course, know like the critics out there have had so much to say about what you do and it being degrading to women. So, in your view, how do you feel about that?
I mean, look, in it's upsetting, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I can't be mad at them. And it's free press. Like, you want to talk about me, keep talking about me. That means I'm doing, you know, I feel I'm doing something right. In the end, I don't understand what's so degrading to women if these women are asking to party with me.
Right.
There's nowhere where I'm like loading up women on boxcars and sending them off to nightclubs and lining them up with a gun to their head and being like, "Hey, show me your tits. Let me spray champagne on you." It's legit. You go to a party and plenty of girls are like, "Kirill, I love you. I want to hang out with you. I don't want to do anything raunchy." I'm like, "Cool, okay. You can just hang out. We can have a drink. You can mingle. You can go do whatever you want to do." And then there's a certain amount of girls that'll run up and be like, "Oh my God, Kirill, I just got my boobs done. I want to show them to you." So where is the degradation happening? The
Right.
fact that I'm just documenting what I see at parties,
Right.
or the fact that these people who are calling me out on something have never stepped foot into one of my parties or events. They've bought into the character the same way that everyone on my Instagram has bought into the fact that my dad is Mr. Bean. It's a joke, you
Right.
know?
I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that because, right, you have women who are approaching you at the parties.
Yeah.
And then I also notice on your social media accounts you have many female followers. And what have they been telling, or what do they tell you about what you do?
The I would say almost everyone that follows me understands the humor, the joke. And the women that follow me, I have plenty of DMs from women and messages and emails that are like, "Hey, Kirill, I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, 2 of them daughters. Like, I love what you do. You're just pointing out that life can be fun and you can do whatever you want. Like, in 50 years, you're going to be dead. Who cares if a girl shows you her tits or if gets drunk and on the internet?" Like, these people understand that there's a lot more shit going on in the world than a Russian kid with a camera taking photos at parties of girls that want to be photographed.
So these girls, they come up to you and they want to have their photos taken. But I mean, is there like any sort of orchestration done on your part? Because I noticed like on your website, like KirillWasHere.com, there's
Yep.
certain photos of like girls with like like the 2% milk carton, and they're are these girls coming to the club with like a carton of milk on them, or is this something
No.
that?
I mean, look, I'm bringing a lot of props. Like, when my rider is like, "Hey, I need 30 bottles of champagne." Once in a while, we'll be like, "Hey, let's get milk." The club provides milk. And then girls come party and hang out. And they're like, "Girl, I want champagne on me." Or, "I just want to take a photo." I'll be like, "Hey, what if instead of champagne, I poured milk on your butt?" Because milk looks cooler when it pours down instead of champagne sometimes, because the harsh contrast between a skin tone and white milk. It just looks like a cooler photo. And these girls are like, "Oh my God, that's an awesome idea. Totally down for it." There's nobody in any of my photos, if you look through them all, where one girl is angry or upset for partying with me. I'm not like, I'm in the business of nightlife and partying, and that is to make sure that people have a good time. I don't think I would have a reputation if my job was to run around and make sure people are miserable at a party.
Absolutely, and the photos definitely do show that everyone is having a good time.
It's
There's
it's
no there's no
it's look,
misery in the.
the people who are against what I do are the kind of people that wouldn't come to my event. Like, I might not like country music, but I'm not going to try to shut it down for the people that do enjoy it. I might not understand it, but it's like, yo, go do it. There's no harm in what you're doing. There's absolutely no harm in
Right.
anything I do.
Do you think to a certain degree that some of your like critics that have kind of given you negative feedback are to a certain degree jealous of your lifestyle?
I don't want to play that card where it's like, "Oh, you're just jealous because you're not me." I think it's that they just don't um, understand or take the time to understand. And it's, look, I don't really care because, like I said, the more people that like protest me, it only becomes fodder for my social media, anyways. And then people are like, "Oh my God, look at these hypocrites." You know, it's, I don't know why people don't, why they talk shit. I guess it's, like I said, I think they just don't understand it. They see the online personality and they see the photos and then they connect their own dots and they're not like, I wonder what's really happening here. It's kind of like like Eminem or Marilyn Manson or like Louis C.K. or George Carlin. Like these people are highly vocal and opinionated people, and they've been up against a lot of criticism, and they're not bad people.
Right. So, I mean, I guess the question I need to ask, Kirill, is how much of it is a performance? How much of it is not? When you're alone with women, like whether they're your friends or what have, like when you're not on camera with them, is your behavior like totally different, or how?
I mean, look, I think to keep anyone's sanity, you kind of have to have a balance of like yin and yang. You know what I mean? It's anytime I step foot into a nightclub, it has to be an exaggerated caricature of my own personality somewhere deep inside of me, where I have to live up to the crazy kid who's gonna like do 20 shots of tequila with everyone at the bar, and then pour champagne on a girl who wants it. When I'm home, I'm obviously not sitting around my friends like, hey guys, let's get ripped, take lots of drugs, and just like go drive. It's like, no, like there's obviously a human element to me when I'm home playing video games with my friends or going to dinner with my friends or, you know,
Right.
it's like you can't buy into the character.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, Kirill, what has your experience been like up here in Toronto?
Toronto is literally one of my favorite cities to go to. I'm actually in Toronto more than I think any other city in the world.
Oh,
I'm in Toronto almost once a month,
wow.
and it's awesome. You know, it's. I think the attitude is very comparable to New York.
Hmm.
Actually, I think the people there are a little bit more laid back. New Yorkers are a little like stuck up and stuffy at times.
Hmm.
Um, but my experience is I've never had an issue. I throw a great party at Toronto, and everyone that comes out is having a good time, and it's never gone off without with any problems.
Right. So, just looking through what you've done visually, one of the things that is arguably your signature, I guess your
Hmm.
photographic signature, is this champagne facial.
Yep.
So, I'm wondering if you could describe that, what it is, and maybe the effect that you're trying to achieve for those who are present and maybe the audience of those photographs.
I mean, I think the champagne facial kind of came about when I used to shoot a lot of brunch parties in New York, and brunch parties in New York are much different than brunch in any other city. I'd say
Hmm.
it's not like you're going to eat, eggs Benedict for $30 with your mom. In New
Right.
York, it's kind of like you're going to eat eggs Benedict, and then 20 minutes later, DJ goes on, and the place goes nuts.
Okay.
It's really weird. It's a really weird phenomenon in New York. It's these weird day brunch parties, and I would shoot those, and uh, the only thing really people would drink at those would be champagne, and it kind of started as to kind of get the crowd going and get the girls loose and partying and just having a good time. Uh, we started just pouring champagne in their mouth. And then one time, I think I literally fell off a chair while pouring it normally into her mouth. It spilled all over her face. And while falling, I snapped a photo. And I was like, whoa, that's actually a really pretty cool photo. One, because the way the liquid and the foam cascades off of someone's face
Hmm.
just looks like a cool photograph. In the same way when you watch a slow mo of a boxer being punched and all the spit kind of flying.
Hmm.
Um, and then there was kind of like this hypersexualism to it too, where it's like, whoa, look at this hot girl, kind of a champagne bukkake esque kind of thing.
Right.
So I started. It was like, okay, let me start doing this, and then it literally overnight after I started posting those kind of photos on my site, I go to parties and girls will be like, "Oh my god, do you think Krill's going to give me a champagne facial?" And I was like,
That's
"Whoa!" I didn't expect people to just like line up for it. I thought it was just something funny for me, and it kind of blew up on its own. And now it's literally everywhere I go. People are like, "Oh my god, are you going to give me a champagne facial? Can you give my girlfriend a champagne facial?" Like, it's weird, but it's
right.
fun because I guess people see the humor in it.
Right. You do it with other substances too, like toothpaste and stuff. I was looking at the Rachel Starr shoot you
Oh
did
no,
recently.
well, Rachel's a good friend of mine, and we were just bored in New York running around.
Yeah, I was really curious about that. Like, how does it do you just like call her up and say, "Do you want to hang out for a day?" And
I
we'll
met Rachel at a party a long time ago, and she'll hit me up, and she's like, "Hey, Krill, I'm in New York. I got the day off. Do you want to hang out?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm in town too." So I just ran over to her hotel with my Polaroid, and she's like, "Do you want to do something stupid today?" And we just decided to run around Manhattan
right,
and see how many places she can take her boobs out before we get kicked out.
right. No, I noticed also the cathedral shot, which was interesting to me because I am in New York often too, and that's where I was last in St. Patrick's. And I was just thinking how the security guard came up to me when I was there with my tripod, you know.
Yo,
So like, and
it's
so if
insane.
imagine, you know, like that's the least of your worries, you know, when the slut whisperer's coming
dude,
in.
dude, we went when we did that photo in the church.
Right.
Legit, 5 minutes later, security comes up to us,
Oh, really?
and the guy goes, "Are you?" And before he finishes to her, Rachel goes, "Yes," and he goes, "I'm a huge fan." And then he gave us a tour of the church.
Oh, no. Unbelievable.
But it's like people were freaking out on my Instagram about it. This is
Right.
so offensive. It's like, dude, religious art is full of nudity. Like,
Right.
what do you like? Here's the thing, and I especially had a post on my Instagram today when I made a Veterans Day joke. Um,
Hmm.
People love being offended on behalf of someone else, and 99% of the time, the people that they're trying to protect get the joke.
Right. Right.
Like, I made a joke. I posted a photo of a veterinarian today, and I wrote, "God bless our vets for keeping our pets safe. Happy Veterans Day." Just
Okay.
like an old style
Right.
Ali GS joke, just kind
Right.
of like,
Right.
"Oh, look, I'm an idiot."
Yeah.
Dude, the amount of like 17-year-old white girls and soccer moms that lost their minds, and then all the vets chimed in like, "Hey, I'm a vet. I fought in many wars. Like, we get the joke. Stop protecting us."
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So, like, the people who are supposed to be the butt of the joke are coming to defense.
Yeah, well, the idea is you most of the time when you're making fun of someone, the
Right.
people you're making fun of get the joke because they can laugh at themselves. It's everyone else who's like, "Oh, look, I could pat myself on the back today because I protected somebody. That's my work. That's my good deed for the day." And it's like you've done nothing. Like you're not helping these vets when they come back from war. You know,
Right.
like you it's people's it's like lazy activism, it's like
Yeah.
the feminists that like protest me pouring champagne on willing Jewish girls, but then they don't care about the women in the Middle East who are having their genitals mutilated.
Interesting. You know, your own background is Jewish, so I have to ask. I mean, morally or religiously, what does your family think about it?
Wait, did you say you're Jewish?
No, no, yeah, no. I mentioned I know that you're Jewish.
I mean,
Uh,
like, non-religious. Look, we
oh,
came from Russia,
right,
so kind of being a Jew wasn't the best thing to be, I guess, from what my knowledge is. You kind of weren't really free to practice your religion. That's why a lot of Jews celebrate New Year's because it's a very non-denominational holiday.
right.
Like we never really celebrated Hanukkah. We never really. I've never been bar mitzvahed. Um, my parents, look, they came from Russia with me, my grandparents, and the two of them with $500 in their pocket,
Right.
and they were in their, let's say, late 20s. So they
Hmm.
had to start a whole new life and take care of a total of five people. And their master's degrees, like from Russia. So
Hmm.
it took them a while. They got on their feet, they got their jobs. And I told them I wanted to be an artist, a Disney animator. And they supported me every step of the way. Um, and I got a free full scholarship to an art school to be an animator. And then I kind of dropped out and started doing the comedy thing and then started doing the nightlife thing. And they've kind of, look, they're strict Russian parents.
Right.
So obviously it upset them to be the first person in their family not to go to college and then to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go party for a living." Like, that's a nightmare, I guess, for a Russian parent.
Hmm.
Uh, but once they saw that I was happier, I was making money, I think a part of them went like, "You know what? Maybe this is kind of why we came to America,
Yeah. No.
because you wouldn't be able to do this anywhere else." Like, you kind of found something different to do. I mean, at least that's what I think they maybe tell
Absolutely.
themselves so they can sleep at night.
Right. I mean, I read a quote, something of that effect, and it just gave me pause to think about the way that, though even because my own background is Italian, I was brought up in that old school Catholic context, but things change, it seems like, for people, even with that mentality, once you kind of are able to make a living from what's, otherwise maybe frowned on, or they don't get if like you're finally making
I
it.
mean, I think that's like, that's probably the case for everything. Like people are like, I want to be an actor, and the family's like, oh shit, we wanted to be a doctor. And then
Right,
you become a successful actor, and they're like, oh my God, we're so proud of you.
right.
Um, but I will say that my first camera, my parents helped me buy. My first animation kit, my parents helped me buy. Like they've. I think their main goal was to instill the work ethic and just the drive into me, and then they kind of let me roll with finding out what I'm going to apply it to.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And you've also commented that you're living the American dream. So I want to get your take on that because, I mean, there's so many ways I hear people defining that phrase now, the American dream. So in your view, I mean, what is that that you're living? And if you think that most men or women or both aspire to have something you do.
I mean, I think the American dream is, I think it's probably a lot different for people that were born in America than people who emigrated here.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me, the American dream meant that you could do anything in America. Like, you know how they say, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like, well, come on, kid, like, relax. You're just going to have a normal job like the rest of us. Like, to me, it made me happy to feel that I kind of was one of the people that broke out of that mold.
Right.
When your guidance counselor in school is just like, well, you're good at math, so you should take statistics and maybe you go into accounting. And I was like, I'm going to try something different.
Right.
Because I think also my parents instilled into me that, hey, in America is probably the only place where you can start over at any point in your life. Because that's what they did. They came to America in their late 20s. They weren't born here, and they basically started over. My dad has a master's degree in mechanical engineering. When he came to America, he drove an ice cream truck. And now he obviously has a real job with his master's in mechanical engineering. But like he basically had to start his entire life over when they came to America. So I think to me, I think that was like, I saw their hard work and determination to succeed in America in their late 20s, supporting everyone. Then I was like, yo, let me try to do something outside the box as well.
So I have to ask, like, in terms of what you're doing, like, how profitable is it? I mean, because I was obviously there's going to be like ties to, of course, like Joe Francis, the founder of or creator of Girls Gone Wild, right? And he obviously made like massive revenue off of that.
Yeah.
But what you're doing in terms of like photography, I mean, is that like where exactly do you get the funding for it? Or where does that revenue come in?
So the way it all started was I was literally running around shooting parties in exchange for free alcohol in 2009. I'd be like, oh my God, let me come to your club. I want to take some cool photos. I'll give you the photos, but just give me free booze. And then I would post all the photos on my website. And I did this for a very long time until my website was generating a shit ton of traffic. And then it kind of became where clubs would hire me because they're kind of basically buying advertising space on my site. Where, say, a club in Boston's like, Krill, we want to hire you, take photos, and then post those photos on your website. So all the people that constantly go to visit your website, when they see your photos from our nightclub, they're like, that's where we want to go when we go to Boston. Then eventually it grew into where my personality was almost more dominant than the actual club or the party I did, where I now kind of get booked out as me owning the night anywhere I go. And the club still hires me, and I kind of bring my brand of no fucks given party to the night.
Right. So mostly
it's the same way that you book a DJ. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's like we need Kirill because we want him to show his 800,000 followers on Instagram and his 12 million visitors on his website that when we go to Toronto, we have to go to Lost and Found because look how crazy he gets it there, and we want to party with him. And then if he's not there, but I still want to go to that club because obviously they know how to have fun there.
For sure, for sure. So so mostly the venues are the ones that are
Yeah, I
generating
don't make revenue. Like my whole goal from the beginning was I don't want to put ads on my site. I want to keep it a clean, dope photo website, and I will find a way for anyone but the customer to pay for this, which would be the nightclub. Like I don't want any of my fans to like. I don't want them to in any way put money in my pocket directly.
For sure, for sure. So, have you? Speaking of like Joe Francis, have you ever considered doing like something along those lines? I mean, maybe not for profit, like as you're mentioning, you're not really about that per se in that sense, but
Because I think Joe Francis to me was a little too planned. My whole thing is, look, I'm going to instigate some stuff at a party, but what I love is the idea of not knowing. I love going into a new room, meeting new people, and just getting drunk and having fun with them. So, like, Girls Gone Wild felt too produced. And it was kind of like, it was obviously, I guess we can call it what it is, porn. I don't want to do that. Like, to me, I like just documenting what happens at a party without having to go into, I guess, the porn world like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Carell, because I was thinking about your photography and the context in which people are seeing it and consuming it. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about whether it would have been received or might even be received differently if it were, say, like, I don't know, in a gallery.
Well, I think that's a very interesting point because I've always said the internet is so fleeting. Everything goes by in 10 seconds. You forget about it. Like something about when you print something, it kind of makes it a little bit more valid, a little bit more real, more tangible.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to do a book. I'm still like, everything I've done in my career has felt like that's the right time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I have a crazy archive of photos. Look, the shit I get for what I do is interesting to me because we've all been to nightclubs or a bar or we've all been drunk around other people. And people are trying to find, like, villainize the photos. But it's like, have you ever been at a nightclub? The only purpose of that place is 4 walls with loud music, alcohol, and in the hopes of people to get laid. It's not a museum. It's not a library. Like, you have to know where these photos are coming from,
Mm-hmm.
in what environment, you know?
Certainly. So, I mean, in your view, do you see what you do as pornography, art, or neither?
Look, I'm very critical of everything I do. I usually hate everything I do 20 minutes after I do it. It's just like I'm a very self-deprecating kind of personality. So to say what I think I do is art, no, but maybe. It's kind of like the idea of, because social media and the ability to interact with people all the time, whether it's my Instagram, my Twitter, putting up my photos and going to parties, it's almost become like performance art in a way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's just kind of like you open up so much to these people. Yeah, we say that Slut Whisperer is an exaggerated character, but there's still so much of me in there. You know, it's kind of like Slut Whisperer is my Slim Shady and Kirill is Marshall Mathers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just this other chip on my shoulder that's kind of like, God, go ahead and say that and see what happens.
Right.
Just to rile people up, to get people talking. And I think the most important thing someone said about art is you want your art to have either a good reaction or a bad reaction. The worst thing you can have is no reaction.
Right.
Because then that means you haven't accomplished anything. I'd rather piss 1,000 people off than to have 1,000 people go, okay.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, George Carlin opened up Carnegie Hall with a joke about abortion. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that is balls.
Mm-hmm. There's also another guy who I came across recently on social media, Richard Prince. Do you know him?
Yes,
He,
Richard Prince is the the artist who did the Instagram things,
right,
right?
right. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was thinking about your art too, because say you took those same images that are on your social media platforms and they went to a gallery, all of a sudden, now it has this potential to be high art. So,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought through all of it too much, but it's interesting. Like, I wonder whether it would have been received differently or will be received differently if you do go down that path one day and have an installation or an exhibit. And
I mean,
yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah,
And I think this is very interesting because, look, I don't think this conversation that you and I are having could have happened, let's say, 20 years ago.
right,
Because most of the time, people got to see what the cream that rose to the top. And they're like, oh my God, this is the big artist now. But
right.
they rarely were there for the whole journey. And
Mm-hmm.
because of social media and the internet and accessibility now, people are along for the whole ride. So they're kind of like judging you while you're trying to grow your brand or yourself. And so it's very easy to like prod and poke and be like, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. That's offensive. You're a piece of shit. You're a misogynist. You promote rape culture, like blah, 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 without you having crossed the finish line yet and to make your final statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, because
So it's good and it's bad because obviously you build a following, you build a fan base, you build a connection with people. But at the same time, you kind of want to be like, yo, leave me alone until I'm done.
right,
And then I'll give it to you. Like it's like listening to a musician make a song without, you know what I mean? Like we hear the final product, but we never really get to see the 16 hours of them figuring it out. I guarantee you, if you put that on YouTube, everyone would talk shit too. You know
right,
what I
yeah,
mean?
because they're I guess, yeah, I see. Yeah, I mean, they're tracking the process right before you
Yeah,
finally.
everyone's tracking my life and how it's going and throwing in their 2 cents along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, being tempered in stand-up comedy for so long and being abused by comedians for so long, like I can handle it and I play the game back with them. So
Yeah, no, I mean, listening to like other podcasts, especially Mark Maron's, like you really get an insight into what that. I mean, personally, before like I didn't know exactly what that universe was like of
yeah,
stand-up comedians. I mean, in your experience, did that make you, um, I guess, a tougher person?
yeah. I mean, it's when you're constantly surrounded by people that are so funny but so honest. It's very rare you meet those kind of people where they will shit on you, but then at the same time shit on themselves, and you realize that like, hey, nothing is off limits. You have to build a thick skin because you never know what you're going to get hit with.
Right.
Like Colin Quinn, who is one of my favorite comedians, always said that like comedy is pointing out all the hypocrisies in the world and then realizing you're just as guilty yourself.
Interesting. Yeah.
It is like
Yeah. No,
I'll make fun of fat people on Instagram and I'm like, hey, I'm fat too. Like, who cares? It's a joke.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned like I do agree with you that yeah, the comedians of today are like the philosophers of the past. I mean, they have that same platform. I mean, maybe they're not making arguments in the same rigorous way, but
Well,
they,
yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think there's certain comedians that are and certain that aren't. You know, you look at like a guy like George Carlin, you're like, holy shit, I wish I went to college and I would go to his class every day
right, yeah,
because
yeah,
he makes you question everything
yes,
and makes it funny and more. Your brain can wrap around it more, and you go, I relate to that. I get that. And sometimes they can sway your opinion.
sure, yeah, especially guys like Carlin, because I mean, yeah, they are they're kind of professorial, really, when you're listening to them. You're not even sure anymore. Is this? I mean, this is comedy, but it's also like
It's like, am I laughing because it's funny?
yeah, this is like
It's
educational.
true.
So, um, and I mean, speaking of your following, it's such a large following. When you have that kind of following, that kind of presence on the web, are they now coming to you, like, and they're consulting you about their life problems? Like, they're now looking to you. I don't know. Do you ever get hit up with, like, I need advice on my marriage situation, or should I buy this car? Like, because I figure that when you get that kind of presence online, when you become that kind of, yeah, even online, that kind of celebrity, people regard you as having maybe sort of this
Answers to everything.
Yeah, like you have this almost like deity quality, right? So do you find that people do that? They will hit you up with something totally unrelated to Slut Whisperer. And you get,
Um, I think a lot of people, yeah, I mean, I get a lot of emails, a lot of messages from people like, A, helping with relationship advice. Like, hey, I'm a virgin. Kirill, tell me, how do I talk to girls? Or, like you said, people just ask the weirdest, dumbest questions. I think because the way my personality online is set up,
hmm
they're almost looking for like, oh man, Kirill told me something funny back or something witty. They're
right,
always waiting for that witty answer because they expect that out of you.
right.
I don't think they're coming to me for actual advice
hmm
as much as like, holy shit, he responded and he said something funny. My day is made. I'm going to screenshot this and post it on my social media.
Oh,
It's
okay.
kind of like, I'm not Oprah, where my following, like Oprah's following, I'm sure is more people actually looking for advice and
Right.
help. My people are just like a bunch of kids on the internet be like, hey, Kirill, like, do you like the Ford Focus or do you like the Nissan Sentra? And then I
Right.
say something dumb like, hey, I got a blowjob in a Sentra in fifth grade.
Okay.
So obviously the Sentra. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Like they're looking for that. They're looking for that personal comedic interaction and
Right.
less about, I think, oh wow, this kid really influenced my life with this one sentence. I'm gonna go live it. Yeah.
Right. Right. It's like a souvenir or something, I guess. Yeah, Jordan, go ahead. No. Okay. Oh yeah, to get back to, the tour you're doing now is called Band. Is it?
No, so I
Yeah.
did. I was supposed to do like 4 or 5 dates
Right.
in, I believe, I'm unfamiliar, so I'm an idiot with it. I don't know the area of Canada that it would be. I guess
hmm
is it Nova Scotia?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and I ended up only doing one gig because the other club owners kind of backed out once the feminists, I don't want to say feminists, or whoever, the people that were against what I do protested. And like any local business, you're kind of going to support your people over some stranger coming into town that you booked for one night because they need those other clients the other 364 days of the year.
Right. And so, I mean, being banned, has that affected your popularity?
Like I said, I think in what I do, especially in the buttons I push and kind of the edginess that I try to bring, it only helps my brand. Where people are like, oh my God, he's banned. It's crazy. I can't believe he got banned from a city. And then people start analyzing and they're like, come on, is this really true? Like, some city doesn't like you because you take photos at parties. Then they start finally seeing like, like what is that's this is bullshit. Like, I can't believe that people actually think this way.
Right. And what is like the normal sort of storyline that happens when you find out that there's a group now that's against you coming here? They want to ban you. You get banned, and then you can't go anymore. Like, how does that play itself out? Are you aware that there's like resistance way in advance to you coming there, or is this sort of a last moment thing?
I think it depends on how vigilant certain groups are, I guess. Um, Look, certain times, the only times it's literally happened is in Nova Scotia, where they protested me and were like, "This is horrible. I can't believe they're bringing this into our community." And I'm kind of aware with it, and I'll play back and forth with them on social media and kind of try to expose a little bit of hypocrisies. Look, there's something that went down in Barrie, Canada,
Right.
that
Yes.
literally had me dying, all my fans dying, and it couldn't have played more into my hands
Right.
if I planned it. I mean, the story was these 4 or 5 people uh, protested my gig and had all these petitions online signed and said that Kirill um, promotes rape culture, I guess, because he endangers women because they want to come and hang out with him and he takes photos of them. Um, and I guess their logic is that men who follow me will take social cues from me and try to do the same thing, which we know obviously doesn't happen because I don't know how many kids have killed anyone after playing Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
So what happened was they kind of shit on me. They banned me, and the club was like, "We're not having you here." Um, and then one of the women that was extremely against me, apparently one of her friends or ex-friends that knew her was like, "Hey, here's some old photos that are on her own Facebook page from years ago where she is making fun of the fact of her snorting cocaine, her in blackface for a Halloween costume, just like basically showing that she knew how to have fun and how to be an idiot and how to be stupid and had a sense of humor. And then all of a sudden I come into town years later. She's like, well, I don't want anyone else to have fun now. And it kind of exposed her hypocrisy of just like, she was like, Kirill, like you promote such a scummy way of life. And then she goes ahead and posts photos of herself doing coke. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I know, as you said, that that they don't get it, the critics. But when you get banned from somewhere, do you ever find that personally demoralizing? Does that like get you the question, what am I doing? Or are you always very confident that what you're doing is what it is and that's all there is to it?
That's a very good question because it's, as a person who a lot of people know personally, it becomes hard for me at times, I guess. The human side of me is like, come on, man. Like, I'm a nice guy. This is like, I can't believe, when somebody calls you, quote unquote, oh my God, he's a date rapist, like a part of you goes like, that stings.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, you're going to throw that around? But then, I start wondering, like, why do they think that way? And then I go, what am I really doing that's causing that? And I'm like, I'm really not doing anything besides tweeting dumb shit, posting dumb Instagrams, and partying with people. And I think the difference is I'm not doing it on a formal stage, whereas like a comedian can go and voice his opinions and they're like, well, he's got a microphone, he's got a stage, that's his audience, that's what people signed up for. It's like when I tweet a sexist joke or a Jewish joke or a black joke, people are like, well, this is fact, this is what he believes. Like they don't understand that the entire body of work is just sarcasm and humor. So the corniest thing that I do is probably just listen to Eminem and Marilyn Manson. And I'm like, okay, these guys have been through it. Not that I'm in any way close to anything they've accomplished or will ever. But you're like, they've made it through and they had their opinions and they stuck by them and people hated them. And I guess, what they say is true. You're not doing something right unless you piss up a bunch of people off.
So interesting. I mean, so do you feel sometimes like no matter what you say in response to your critics, that you'll always be in crosstalk with them? They'll never see your point of view and vice versa?
Well, yeah, look, I see their points 100% because I have a sense of humor and I can I can reason. They have an agenda and their agenda basically dictates like, this is what I believe or I have to believe, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts, and we can't bend in any way. And they also, because of their agenda, can find offense in any situation. Like they got really upset with me about a joke I made about gun control that said that it promoted rape culture. I believe the joke was, I tweeted it, it was like, we don't need gun control, we need blowjobs. Because after I've gotten a blowjob, something like after I've gotten a blowjob, I'm more calm and peaceful.
Right.
So, and that's it. And they were like, well, this is saying that a woman has to service a man, otherwise he will hurt her. And it's like, no, the joke is how weak we are as a species, that I can hate my fellow man and want to kill him. And after I come, I'm like, well, all right, never mind. I'm cool. Like, that's the joke.
Right.
But make it twisted like, well, you're implying that women need to be servicing their men, otherwise they'll get beaten up for it. And it's like, oh, come on, guys. Like, seriously?
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, Kirill. I mean, without taking any sides here, because it's like I could imagine how that's frustrating for anyone because there's like a certain kind of ascription of beliefs, like or imputation of beliefs to you or intentions to you that you don't have. You try and explain that you don't mean that, but they keep on saying you do. You know, they're trying to like put stuff in your head that's not there. So just yeah, again, without taking sides, I can.
Well, look. First of all, offense is taken, not given,
Right.
because I'm offended by different things than you are. So I can't. And people never ask somebody's intention. They automatically go, "Well, this is what I think you said," and it's like, "Well, how about you fucking ask me what I said and what I meant by it?" Because you're the one thinking that, not me.
Right.
Like, look, if you post photos of pugs and my mom got bitten by a pug and died, pugs might be offensive to me.
Right.
But I'm not trying to, like, I understand that you love pugs, so I'm not trying to get rid of pugs. Like, I have to deal with that situation on my own.
Right.
Like, it's offense can be, you can be offended by anything. So it's just really frustrating dealing with people that are very, like, you know, they have like their horse blinders on and like, this is how I have to feel about this.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the problem with ideologies, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Jordan. Um, so I think you kind of answered this already, Krill. If for whatever reason, actually, before I even get that, I have to ask about like the physical side of what you do. I mean, it creates a mess in the club, right? Like what you do, like when you're pouring all that, like how does that get clean? Like what's the agreement you have with the club?
I mean, look, the club knows what they're getting themselves
Right.
into. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's just like any other thing. You go to a concert, like who's cleaning up the confetti? You
Right.
know, it's like there's a job for everyone to make sure that everything is done safely and everything's cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you go to a Gallagher show, I don't really give a fuck who's cleaning up the smashed watermelon, but somebody is, you know.
Right. 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 So yeah, I mean, I just one final question. So this is what I thought you may have touched on, but I'll just ask it again anyway. If for whatever reason you couldn't photograph what you're doing, like all things being equal, you can do what you do, but you couldn't photograph it. I don't know. Say we lived in a world that there weren't any cameras yet or video. Would you still do it? Would you still be the slut whisperer?
No, I mean, look, I don't know what the situation would be. Like I said, my whole career path and everything has always been very fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, I didn't plan any of this, but I kind of like fell into this and I kind of evolved with it. Like I said, I wanted to work for Disney my whole life. Like I was a phenomenal artist. I wanted to just live at Disney World and just draw.
Right.
And then, you know, I started maturing and got the comedy scene, then started going out. And then I was like, whoa, let me take photos because this seems fun. And then it just, after a while, it evolved and I started having this voice and people started listening. And I was like, look, this Slut Whisperer Crew was here shit. It's just going to keep growing into something bigger and it's going to come out on the other end way different than what it started. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that for a fact. Mm-hmm. So this is my career. It's like a guy that starts as in the mailroom and then ends up the CEO, you know?
Right.
It's just, look, it could all fail and I'm going to have to get a real job and I'm okay with that. But as of right now, look, I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I don't know if I would be in the situation, like you said, if there was no social media or no cameras, or probably not. You know, mm-hmm. This kind of grew out of the circumstances of where I was at the time and the technology and everything else.
Well, that's fantastic, man. Yeah, it's been fascinating just to hear. You know, your point of view has been fascinating.
Dope. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks a bunch, man.
All right.
Okay, take care.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye, guys.
Okay,
The Slut Whisperer.
yes.
I can't believe he whispered to us. Actually, he didn't really whisper at all.
Not really, really outspoken. I think, I mean, on the one hand, it's refreshing that he owns what he does. I don't think he apologizes for any of the criticism that he's getting. But I do have to wonder who's complicit in the situations that he's creating at the parties. Because visually, I think it does come off as degrading still and as misogynistic. But if, as he's saying, the women are agreeing to it, they enjoy it, then where is the blame, or who's at fault? What do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that
think?
I think that definitely there's no question that he's exploiting women at these parties. I mean, you got to take into consideration that all these women are not sober. You know, I mean, if they were sober and they went to him on a good day, and then just decided to do this, that'd be one thing. But the fact that he's approaching, young women that are definitely inebriated in a club scenario, and they're more susceptible to saying yes to certain things like, take your tits out and let's take a photo and get this champagne facial, which is so suggestive of, like cum shot. It's so...
Right. Oh, definitely.
There's a lot of stuff.
It's clear anyone. It's like the whole Girls Gone Wild thing.
Absolutely. It's clear that it's, it's not female friendly.
Yeah, I know. I think it's for a male audience. Mm-hmm. That's my own feeling. That's for a male audience who's not there at the club. Right, who aren't getting to the parties for whatever reason, can't make it.
Vicariously living through his photos.
It's a social media thing, right? He's kind of like this adventurer going into the club, sort of like a safari.
Yeah, he's like a wildlife photographer.
Right, he goes. That's it. He goes in. Kirill is scouting out, the field for these things that he's complicit in making, and then he brings that back to social media for everyone to see. And but at the same time, I do feel like he's onto something. Like, there is something about his subjects, right? I think there's a certain vanity that he's catering to. I mean, like he said, he's not putting them on trains and just shipping them off, right? But it really got me thinking about, like, can something still be sexist or misogynistic even when women are agreeing to it, right? Like, who gets the final say? Like, just because a woman has decided that she wants to do something or appear a certain way, can you still call that wrong or sexist? So, I mean, it's a question that I'm still kind of grappling with, especially after that discussion.
It's a difficult question, and I mean, I think that also, every time we talk to somebody, it's just like last week's episode with Trash Gordon. I feel like when you look at this person from an outside perspective and you see what they're kind of showing the public is their values,
right,
you're like, this guy is very unlikable. But then when you sit down and you talk to that person and you see, okay, they're actually another human being, and they sort of explain their motives. And I think with Kirill, his biggest motivation, I think, is irony.
Absolutely.
And, to a certain degree, everybody's operating in the exact same way that he is. But it just so happens that this also brings up a lot of gender equality questions.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I feel like, speaking to him, his intentions are sincere insofar as that what he's trying to do is to entertain, or, he even calls it a joke, right? So I don't think he's going out there trying to be menacing or like harmful to women. But it's like that whole question, intention versus the actual artwork, like the meaning of it. Where does it come from? Does it come from the intention or like from the audience that's seeing it? Because in the end, like, what he's doing is something that's consumed. It's always for an audience. It's not like his own personal photo album that he's taking, for posterity's sake. He's putting it out there. He's trying to elicit a reaction. And, there's no doubt about it. There's a certain element to it, whether we're talking about the champagne facials or not, there's a certain element to it that is erotic, that is sexy. You have beautiful women on camera. So there's no denying that, I think what's upsetting a lot of people, especially women, have come forward and have tried to ban them from the establishments in certain cities and whatnot, is the portrayal of them in those shots, in those champagne facial shots. Because at that point, not knowing anything more about that subject, right, you're kind of reduced to, this, what would you call, I don't know, this receptacle of champagne, or just sort of,
Yeah.
just this object, because you don't
That's
know
super
anything. You
flattering.
don't know anything about that person and the subject, right?
No.
So what possibly can you gather from that other than what's immediate, which is just this sort of thing that mimics porn.
Yeah.
This sort of objectification. So and but I take the distinction seriously, because I don't think he's out. I don't really feel that he's out to harm anyone.
No,
I don't think he's. I don't even think he's misogynistic, himself.
No, it's just it's a byproduct of what he does. But I think that he's got his own motivations, and he's doing them out of good intent and goodwill.
Right.
And I do respect him for that. And I think that it's a byproduct. It so happens that what he's doing, it is misogynistic. But what do you guys think, listeners out there? Because this is a hot topic, and we want to know. So comment on Podbean or Facebook, and remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. Also, you might want to check out our friends at Identities, which is also available on Podbean and iTunes, which is a pretty cool podcast show itself. We've all heard of Hannibal Lecter, but a cannibal lecture? You're not going to want to miss next week's podcast, where we'll be cooking up something extra special on the menu for your ears to feast upon. We'll be sitting down with the quote-unquote cannibal cop of New York City, Gilberto Valle, who will be talking to us for the first time after his 21-month sentence in prison. Until then.
This is The Dark Room.